Good morning. Welcome back. I'm Angelica with In God's Timing. This morning, I'm going to be talking about learned behaviors in this video, which basically is things that we've learned over time, things that we've been taught, things that we've experienced throughout our life. That could be from our upbringing, our parents. That can be, different environments that we've been in, friends, TV, social media, video games, a lot of different things where we, as far as our mindset, the way we think, how we interpret things, our opinions, um, everything is taught and learned. We don't just do things just because. And a lot of times we end up getting our how we think of things altered. Like I said, upbringing makes a big difference, what you're around. And a lot of times, unconsciously or consciously, we still do stuff. Stuff that maybe our parents did, stuff that we see our friends doing, or even try it or experience it. That's one reason why it is so important for us to monitor our children, because things that they are exposed to, things that they watch, things that they do, people that they're around, etc., can help frame the way they think, can help frame their life. Okay, because how we think about things, how we perceive things, it speaks volumes. That's why a lot of different things take place that happen in our lives because of something we was taught. Okay, so when we find out we get older, you become mature and you begin to find out the truth as far as different things that you've experienced or different things that you were told, then you can make the necessary adjustments. But sometimes the older we get, or even sometimes we get so stuck in a mindset or become numb, there's no other way, right? Like there's whatever you learn is stuck in stone. We won't even read about, let nobody tell you any different. And it just depends on what it is and what the situation is. But that's one of the biggest things that we're seeing taking place right now is learned behaviors. So I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and we were talking about a lot of things that we missed growing up, right? That we didn't learn. Some examples were, not being taught how to be a mother, right? Or being taught uh, to get married, right? Or having it talked about as far as in our community. So a lot of times people just expect you to know how to function and maneuver throughout life, right? It didn't come with a blueprint. Okay. There's no book that can teach you how to be a parent. There's nothing like experience for things that we end up dealing with, right? Somebody can tell you all day, but until you actually experience certain situations, you'll never really understand. So as things begin to be exposed even more and unfold, many of us are seeing that because we missed foundational skills or foundational teachings from our upbringing, certain wisdom that we needed to help prepare us throughout life, we see the effects of it now. A lot of things have matured, choices that we've made, right? So when you know better, you do better to help somebody else. Because a lot of times, like I said, when you get older, you get stuck in your ways. Some of our parents, but our parents, nobody wants to say that I was wrong, that I missed it. No type of accountability. And we see that a lot where we just brush things off and tolerate it, or we, just like, it is what it is, versus addressing it or acknowledging it. Because at the same time, it's going to still come back up again. We've seen it happen from generation to generation throughout this world, where it was things that we did not discuss or talk about it. And then now when it comes on the scene, or people are battling with mental health or dealing with certain issues, I wasn't taught this and I was missing these vital keys during my growing up process or my growing process. Now it's a lot of dysfunction or dysfunctional thinking. So when we see these type of things happen, we a lot of times assume others know. We assume a lot of stuff about each other, right? You just expect somebody to have common sense. We expect everybody to treat everybody right, to be fair, not do you dirty, just the basics. A lot of the basic things that we should be doing, we don't. A lot of selfishness comes from it too. But the biggest part is not taking responsibility to help you along throughout that process. But you have to take consideration until you actually go through it. That's what's going to help you. Learning from other people and people that's around you. So like I said, we assume for so many people that they should just know. and then we'll, I guess, dig in on them. Oh, you should know that already. You should know how to be a wife, or you should know how to treat people. We assume these things, but depending on how you were brought up and raised, they may not know. So when I say learn behavior, it takes time. On top of understanding that we have to identify that we all weren't brought up the same, we weren't raised the same. So many factors that play into that, even with religion, what you believe. When people treat people differently just because of the way they look, you know, taught and learned. And we make excuses for it as if, oh, no, they're just like that. No, it's stuff that they picked up from their environment, stuff that they picked up from home. If their parents were like that, you're going to be like that. Things that they touch and do, or people around you, you end up doing it yourself. So when we hear people saying, I didn't see a lot of marriages in the home. So a lot of people, especially in my community, end up having a lot of children out of wedlock, right? Because if you're not taught certain things, right, you're not going to be looking to do it. That's with anything. So even with school, even with church, whatever you want to call it, so many different things. If it's not explained properly or addressed, you wouldn't know. So it's a lot of fundamental things that we are missing out on. So we give people the benefit of the doubt, right? But when we keep seeing the same cycles and patterns happening over and over again, even in relationships, if you continue to get the same type of people or dealing with the same type of results, whether it be, I mean, I guess, if they cheating on you, or, you can still keep being the same type of men or women, whatever, that's when you have to self-reflect and look at yourself. Because we have a lot of people that, because we get in relationships and we weren't, I guess you can say, prepared, or we don't, because we give people the benefit of the doubt, we don't think that certain things will take place. Learning to read game, okay, using wisdom on different things, because these things begin to happen over and over again. And then we see all these toxic relationships, and a lot of people are snapping right now. So when I say things have matured, when you don't take accountability, and like I said, even as parents or friends, holding each other accountable, when things begin to happen, it's like people are in shock. They're trying to figure out, where did it come from? We're a generation that doesn't want to be corrected. Not used to being told no or you're wrong. So when I say learn behavior, especially in my community, being taught by your oppressor. So if people don't want you to progress, and you just look around, and I said, the older I get, and the more that's being exposed in these times, and that we're being able to see clearly, for some of us, it's baffling how much has been contaminated and tainted, right? So if somebody wants you to, it's like manipulation tactics. If I need you to do or conform to the lifestyle I'm trying to give you, there's certain things that I have to put in place in order for you to exhibit those qualities, those characteristics, or whatever. So that's what we've been seeing happening. So a lot of people are working towards trying to live this fairy tale dream, or living in a fairy tale world, but missed a lot of those basic things to see that a lot of stuff is shady. A lot of stuff, the stereotypical things, we get stereotyped so much as people and each other because of, or based on those things that we were taught, based on things that we learned. So we automatically have those preconceived notions of who does what they're going to do, what they're going to look like, how they're going to respond. And none of us are the same. Everybody's not going to respond the same, because we don't all learn the same. We don't all interpret the same. But then when you continue to get the same responses, that means we have to step back and self-reflect. But not only that, look at your environment. Because when people keep doing the same things over and over again, and you allow it, that means you're missing it. And that means, honestly, do you even want to see the change? Or you want to continue to follow in the same footsteps? So a lot of things were pre-planned. Okay? Pre-planned. Like I said, if you want to control somebody, even like I said in a relationship, you're going to tell them what they want to hear. We see that happen on jobs, like a salesperson. I'm going to tell you what you want to hear so I can make this deal, or so I can get in the bed with you, or so I can be in a relationship. But we don't think about consequences that comes with our actions, because so many times, like I said, many people aren't held accountable. It seems like they're not, but in due time, each person, I don't say every dog has their day, but it comes back around. You reap what you sow. So how you treat people and how you do folk, it comes back. So that's one of the biggest things that we think about, how we were used to fulfill other people's purposes. Was nothing but the enemy, right? And what God's purpose is for our life too. We know that this is good and evil. The things that I talk about are based on my beliefs, right? What I've seen, my own personal experiences. And when I say that being used to fulfill purpose so people can be comfortable, um, we see the same things happening, in our community, where people don't care about your degree, they don't care about your title, they don't care about who you are. And it keeps replaying over and over again. The same stuff, just a different person. And then people are still confused why we keep ending up here. You have so much wickedness that's on an all-time high. It's even just with the children, the level of the disrespect, how high even just the perversion is. And like I said, we ignore things. It's a mockery, right? People make a mockery of God's people. They make a mockery of God. And we get caught up sometimes in settling things that have happened throughout history over and over again. Like I said, we've missed it. So each generation, we're supposed to prepare the next generation, right? Giving them wisdom, understanding, breaking stuff down. Hey, this can happen if you do this. The basics. And we haven't done that. We kind of did each other a disservice. We have different people that hold certain offices. Even ourselves, even as a parent, like I said, you have a responsibility as a parent, to lead and guide your children. You have more parents that want to be their kids' best friend versus correcting them because you don't want to hurt their feelings. You have people that have friends or in relationships. You won't tell them they're wrong because you don't want to hurt their feelings. You don't want them to not talk to you anymore. It shows how strong the level of immaturity we have right now. Just the mindset of how people think, and then wonder, are confused to why these abrupt changes and so many heavy things are taking place in the world because we ignored a lot. It makes sense though. A lot of people, we chose not to acknowledge God. Not everybody, but it's too many. You even think about when God gave warning to Abraham and Lot when he was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. The Bible speaks about how the wickedness, such the heighten of wickedness, it got up to the Most High, basically, right? That aroma, that I guess you can say, like that aroma, that smell, like it came to him, so he had to address it. So things now are so wicked, so dysfunctional. And because we don't want to talk about certain conversations or address things that we see very transparently in our homes, in our families, and sit back watching families be destroyed, businesses, culture, so many different things because of learned behavior. We wanted to fit in as people, and we end up in a place of just dysfunction. So the biggest thing was acknowledging God. Like I said, God will have our undivided attention. We get to a place where as if like people, they don't need him. I'm talking about believers. Go about day to day like I can do what I want to do and get away with it. But we're seeing people suffering. We're seeing, I don't want to say about a boatloads, but a lot of death, right? You got all these different things taking place all over the world. And God wakes up his people to prepare. But the biggest part is it's a heart thing. We do the blame game. We don't want to take responsibility. But how can you expect, let me say it like this. Because God has been giving us opportunity over and over again, he doesn't want anybody to fall. He doesn't want anybody to fail. He's a loving God. He's given us ample amount of time to correct stuff, to address different issues. We don't think about even with holding each other accountable. When you don't say something and that person, something happens to them, yes, they're at an age of accountability if they're an adult or even children. When you know right from wrong and you choose not to say anything, you're accountable for your part. So when the word talks about it, God judges the church. That's me and you. So we become so complacent and we do the blame game, And I said it's very unfortunate, even people just being spiritually aware of the things that are taking place, knowing that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, how so many of these things have passed down from generation to generation. So with the word of God, with Israel being judged and God's people being scattered and being cursed. When I look at different things, even just on social media or things that we may experience on a job and our families, as far as my communities, it's the same thing over and over again. So we have to look back over history, the same cycles and patterns, because we didn't want to listen. We didn't want to hearken unto God's voice. Being examples and role models, showing what Christ-like looks like. So when you have people, even with the church, and you look just like the world, how can people differentiate who is who? So now we have a generation that has become so numb to the fact that they don't even acknowledge or want to address just basic common sense issues, or just basic things that we deal with every day. Even just church or going to church or relationships, because it's easier to deflect. It's easier to, like I said, point the finger, blame somebody else. But at some point, accountability is necessary. So when we start to figure out or start to understand that it's an awakening that's taking place and that's happening. And like I said, it's a lot of users. So we have learned behavior, even just not just characteristics we have, sexualities, different things that we do, different things that we touch. Learned behavior. It didn't just come out overnight. So when we start following suit with everyone else, there comes accountability with it. So even when I was listening to the word earlier in Jeremiah, when God was speaking to Jeremiah saying, basically the Lord, he already told us, it's prophecy, that this is a rebellious generation, adulterous. That means basically serving and trusting everybody but God. It was already prophesied. So we see this happening, like I said, with people using each other, lying and stealing and robbing and hurting and, manipulating. We see it across the board and think that there's no accountability. And the enemy plays on our trauma, on our ignorance. He don't care if you miss it or not. This is why the fight gets so strong about the truth coming out. How people will run around the bush or run around the truth and deflect and change the subject. Because when you actually look around, people will tell you one thing, but when you look at the evidence, it's the same things throughout history. Just certain tactics that have been used to take advantage of many people. So even when you're affiliated, or if you know somebody's doing something wrong and you don't acknowledge it, you're just as wrong as that person, right? If you see somebody committing a crime and somebody asks you and you just don't even, I don't want to be no part of that, I don't have nothing to say, you're just as guilty because you knew what they were doing. So a lot of stuff we missed because, like I said, we missed a lot of fundamental or foundational skills that were taught because of the different tactics or, different things that were used to keep us out of the know. But now that things are being released and now the revelation is coming out even more, it's basically denial, okay? Ignorance, those strong delusions. So the Lord will end up turning you over to a reprobative mind. You don't want to heed correction. You don't want to listen. So when we begin to see the death tolls heightening, because when you give like a parent, when somebody gives you, when your parents keep getting on you over and over again, don't do this, this is going to take you down the wrong path, pay attention, be mindful of who you around or whatever, and they don't listen. Many of us have been drawn to the Lord because of we went through some mess and he brought us out. Jesus saves. Okay? Where if it weren't for him, we don't know where we would be. But then when you don't even acknowledge him, so it's as if like with a relationship or being married. A man wants to know that his woman, his wife needs him, that vulnerability, right? The father wants to know that we need him. So we got it all together and we not studying him and nothing is not relevant, but it's non-effect. The things that are taking place in the world, it's non-effect to the people, but then he'll show us. So just like with Egypt, he allows those plagues that were sent for those who wrongfully did his people ends up being affected by those plagues. So when he says, come out from among them, move out the way, we make so many excuses. Well, my mama wasn't there, my daddy wasn't there, and, my baby daddy and, the job, all of those things are real. It is very real. Life, like I said, will teach you, especially if you make mistakes. And then, like I said, with those strategic plans for some of us, when you make mistakes, it's things been set in motion, put in place to keep you from moving forward, to keep you from progressing. Even if you do get the degree, even if you do, we are shown day by day, every day, okay? Whether it be the news, social media, whatever, that you still aren't anybody. We still got you by the reins. So when God explains and discusses in the Bible and the prophecies and different things we're seeing that's manifesting, the very things that you did to my people, I'm gonna do to you. So because we what is it? We're looking for things to happen. I don't know. Sometimes we overthink stuff. Don't even realize that judgment has already been taking place. When people are trying to figure out, well, why did this happen to my child? Or why did this happen? Some things that are happening, whether it been people overdosing or, certain unfamiliar diseases, things not making sense. What you do, it comes back on you. What you do to God's people. So I said, we ignore a lot of the same things that have happened year after year, generation after generation. That, of course, we choose and make our own choices, right? We have free will. You have that choice. But each generation has gotten worse. So now it's just such a ruthlessness, cold-heartedness, no remorse for people, no remorse or care of life. People will take people's life with not even thinking twice. And like I said, with that accountability part, because somebody hurt your feelings or didn't do what you wanted them to do, that just gives you the right to take it into your own hands. So then you have to suffer the consequences. This is why it's important to hold each other accountable. Because if you have never been really told no like that, right? If somebody's always bailed you out or, gave you everything, you don't know what it is to really deal with rejection, right? Offense. Somebody get offended, somebody hurt somebody's feelings and they go all the way left. Or they keep doing the same stuff over and over again. And we brush it off. Oh, we all make mistakes. Yes, we do. But at some point you got to change. So you a Christian, you believe in Jesus Christ, but you don't have any change or any growth. At some point, change is supposed to come. You're not supposed to stay there. So it's hypocritical when people give the idea, and like I said, learn behavior, that it's okay. We all fall short. Yes, we do. But change is a part of that process. Okay, not only for yourself, but so you can be a positive impact or influence on other people. So he prepares us for a reason because he knows that we're already rebellious, we hard-headed, we don't want to listen. Not just God's people, that's across the world. Many people are talking about the rapture and all these different things. And I'm like, as a believer, how can you say you're a Christian but not love your brothers and sisters? Okay? Not feel or be concerned when they're hurting. Or when you see the same things happen over and over again. But we hear justification. We see things justified and making excuses or they deserve it. And then God begins judging. He comes for the house of the Lord first. So many are concerned about how people will respond and feel about you telling the truth. We're supposed to do everything truthfully, right? how we treat people, everything that we do. But now it's at a point where I've even been just asking God, Lord, expose it all. Because some folks, you know, they get that like amnesia. Okay, we've seen that throughout history, like amnesia, like we just don't know what happened. You know, we don't understand. We don't, this is like it's, things are just happening just because. Like we still keep seeing the same things over and over just because. So now it gets to a point where there's no need to conversate. I ask God to expose it all. Most High, have mercy. Forgive us where we missed it, because that's the thing we not realizing, with Israel being scattered and God's people being cursed because we didn't hearken, because of generation to generation. And some stuff, like I said, we didn't know. We missed it. Our ancestors may have did it. But just as God is holding his people accountable, he's holding those very ones. The sins of the father do pass down. So even for evil and wicked people, right? Even though you can say, oh, it wasn't us, it was our parents, it was our ancestors that did whatever with slavery, you're still accountable. The sins pass down. Payment is still owed. Debts, you're still accountable for your debts, right? That's a part of life. That's basic real life 101, right? If you owe somebody money, they're expecting you to pay them back. If you commit a crime, you're going to be judged for it, right? It's same thing. Being held accountable for your part. So this is why I say it's important to move out of the way, because now you're seeing so many mental health breakdowns. And like I said, things have matured. Trauma. When I say we have tolerated so much as a people to where it is so dysfunctional, right? To where, you know, being taught to just be quiet. People pleasers for everyone else's comfort. It gets tiring. And it's not fair. So I understand why God, you know, presses so hard on his people to clean up and come out of your sin, and, you know, strive to start working on yourself, because it is a hard thing and it does take time. But he wants your vulnerability. He wants to know that you are making the necessary adjustments, that you are taking the steps in seeking him. People want to find every other way to is there another way, basically? Can I do this? Can I do that? If you got to ask certain questions, is this right and this wrong? That should tell you something there, that it probably is wrong. Your conscience is probably kicking in. You're like, you know what, that probably isn't a good idea. So like I said, when things unfold, you know, like I said, because of learned behavior, we end up caught up in all these different groups, right? Toxic thinking. And we're seeing all these things happen, you know, in our relationships, in our families that are broken. Funeral after funeral after funeral. And many feel like they have so much time, to get it together. Things are accelerating, happening quickly. So because God's people chooses not to listen, he allows things to happen. And when you don't prepare, even just mentally or spiritually, right, for things that take place, people end up suffering or they end up dying because you become so numb, and you have so many people that like peace, there is no peace, right? No type of, you know, like you don't heed in the spirit what's going on right now as far as believers. Your spiritual senses aren't kicking in. All you hear is about blessings, and not those curses or accountability coming in. I was like, people want the blessings, but you don't want to put in the work. It's sacrifice. It's not easy and it's hard. You know, it will make people think that, you know, the devil is a lie. I was like, Lord, I asked him, I said, Lord, expose it all. Every wicked hand, every demonic thing. Forgive us because we missed it, Lord. Many of us missed it. Our ancestors, our parents, we missed it. That's why I say when you know better, you do better. God is using different people as examples and sharing their testimony, sharing their life, you know, not tolerating things anymore. If something is wrong, saying something about it, not just sitting back waiting for destruction. Because now you have people that are being destroyed, families that are being destroyed, places in the world that's being destroyed. And all these distractions on social media, in your life that the enemy brings in, so you can get caught off guard, so you won't be ready, so you won't be prepared. So when people are confused to why are these things happening, because we weren't listening. Even the pandemic, why would God allow these things to happen? Because you weren't listening. You wanted to do what you wanted to do, right? And think the consequences wouldn't come. So this is why I say it's important to move out of the way, because God will have everybody's undivided attention. It's important to build relationships with people, getting your heart right, because you've seen a lot of the evil and that wickedness, people, true colors coming out, and they're going all the way left. Okay, to where the death is ridiculous, but it's more coming. Like I said, when we don't hearken and we don't listen, judgment. That's a part of our job as believers, to shed light, right? To share the gospel, to tell the truth, versus just sitting back hiding. Like I said, God gives us opportunity. We in overtime. Okay, 400 years was 2019. It's 2022, and we still same things happening. The racism, this, that, still happening. Is being justified. Yes, it was these things that happen in our lives and in our generation. God is judging it. But if you don't move out the way, you end up getting caught in a crossfire because you made an excuse, wanting pity. I'm like, even with believers, you should be ashamed. You should feel bad. Correction it comes with the job. I mean, it comes with the walk. But like I said, and that's just like black folk, stubborn. God's people, stubborn. Don't want to come out. I can have this and I can have that. I can have my cake and eat it too. But because he loves his people, that's why I said, Lord, you gonna kill everybody? Ooh, make you feel like Abraham when he was talking to God when God was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. He's like, wait a minute, if it's 10 that's righteous, wait, if it's 5, Lord, forgive us. You know, many of us, we missed it. Forgive us, Lord. Have mercy. Cover your people. Don't allow the wicked and our enemies to overtake us, you know, and our families, because it's not only just those mainstream things we're seeing that's happening. We're seeing that the maturation of generational curses that are taking place, even from lifestyles, from choices. Like I said, those learned behaviors, things that have passed down. Now we're seeing the overflow of it, of those manifestations, people losing their mind. They went through so much. So when you think about pressure being applied, this is why he pushes us to gather, right? To come together. It's like that can't get right spirit. The devil is a lie, but it's all prophecy. So those things that we should be and need to be taught in school and in church, a lot of those things we overlooked, like in Joel or in Isaiah, about God judging the nations for what you did to my people, scattering my people. Like I said, that amnesia. How in such a time as this, in God's timing, we on his time, that the very things that you do, this is what anybody, this is why I learned to try and strive to keep my mouth off of, because when you let God handle it, okay, I've had people in my own personal life, okay, that have tried to destroy me, have tried to do this, that did me dirty. And when I moved out the way, God addressed it. So he fights for his people, okay, because he loves us. But because he's just and fair, you got to get right. You can't do what everyone else does and get away with it. You're going to be held accountable. He's going to hold you accountable. So as I say, even just the judgment in the world and on the nations, people think it's by coincidence, all these different things happen around the world. God is allowing it to happen, setting it up. At the same time, telling us, get your mind right. Okay, clean up the church. That's us as individuals and the church. Okay? Speaking truth, not speaking truth in a way to where it accommodates your lifestyle. Basic right and wrong. There is no in between. There is no, no lukewarm, gray. It's either you hot or you cold. This is not the time to play church. This is not the time to play with people's lives, to play with your own life. It's important to pay attention. That's why I say a lot of things we have learned, that were maybe not so good, that we missed it in and not the best. But like I said, when you know better, you do better. Learn from your life. Learn from experiences. Learn from things that you see. When you see things unfolding, okay, this was not right, or oh my goodness, I was wrong. Acknowledge you're wrong and correct it. That's one of the worst things, to not even acknowledge you're wrong. This is why things are happening. Like, especially when you're affiliated and you know, and you sit back and watch. But a lot of times, until things come knocking at other people's door, or their family get touched, or sickness or disease or poverty, or whatever it is, then they begin to see. So God will allow things to happen so you can see a little clearly that He is God, the only one true God. So it blesses me to see the uprising in God's people, right? Even look, just jumping, walking on water. When you mature, you correct things. If you say something wrong or do something wrong, I've seen it, and I respect that when I see people do that. Well, maybe I said this wrong or I did this wrong. At least they stepped out. They stepped out. They walking by faith and not by sight, even though it may not make sense. You got a remnant that's stepping out. The enemy is seeking whom he can devour. So if you're touched and you're touching and entangled in all these different things, you can become a casualty. Even with the children, you're accountable. So it's important to pay attention and wake up, y'all. Them wake up calls, knowing that God has been giving us time. He has been giving us time. And time is of the essence. So don't ever take your grace period for granted. Don't ever take time for granted, because you don't know what today or tomorrow holds. But He warns us for a reason. He prepares us, teaches us. Get in a relationship with Him. Getting to know Him for yourself. That's what we do when we get in relationships. You get to know Him for yourself. I had to tell my kids that people gonna always talk about you. Everybody's not gonna like you. A lot of this conversating back and forth, trying to make people understand that we still being treated unfair, trying to make people, if they ain't changed by now, they ain't gonna change. Those that have chose to change and see and address things, then okay. But it's too many that still don't see. So it's going to take the Most High to do some shaking and awakening. And that's the part that blows people's mind, with the reality of, oh my goodness, it is true. God is real. I told you, Jesus is one who saves. I'm a prime advocate for it, especially where He's brought me from. Okay? It was nobody but God. Jesus is the one who saves, and that's what we need, the Most High, because there's so much that's going on. It's going to take God, especially for my people, being stubborn, rebellious, adulterous generation. It's only God that can save us, but you have to hearken to His voice. All right, so you all be blessed. Like I said, learn behaviors, different things that we have picked up throughout our lives, throughout our experiences, different things we practice. It's not by just coincidence, okay? It's things that we've consciously or unconsciously picked up. But when you know better, you do better. So we can grow and we can progress and prepare for these times that we're in. So you all be blessed. Y'all have a wonderful day. I'm Angelica with In God's Timing, and I will talk to you all soon.